can't have it both ways. I can't say to anybody, don't pay attention to spring results or don't pay attention to spring individual showings, isolated lines, and then express alarm whenever one of those comes along that doesn't look very favorable. But, ... Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Twins 15, Pirates 3 yesterday in Fort Myers, Florida. No, that does not matter at all. If anything, the one element that mattered the most was that Jared Jones pitched quite well. 4 1/3 innings, 1 run, used all his stuff, got it all over. Great, wonderful, awesome. But David Bednar, who had 4 spring appearances before this game, had been pretty good. Not necessarily, off the charts, but good enough that all the stuff that's been discussed this spring, including a conversation he and I had down there in February, has, for the most part, come to pass. He's attacked the zone. He's stayed with the fastball, stayed on the fastball, gotten it where it needs to go, worked high in the zone, which has always been an effective tool for him. And of greatest concern, given the way things went in 2024, he's thrown strikes. Or, let me get that one grammatically correct. He had thrown strikes. Yesterday, it took him 26 pitches to record 1 out. Of those 26 pitches, 12 were strikes. He was charged with 5 earned runs on 3 hits and 2 walks. And that's not great. That's not great because it's symptomatic of what happened last season. That's not great because you're supposed to be getting more in command of everything that you do as you get closer to the real games. And that's not great because he's just so pivotal to this whole process for the Pirates. He is one of maybe a handful of players on the roster that you could describe that way, where there's just nowhere to go without them being either at their optimal or close to their optimal. Bednar has to be the all-star version of Bednar for this team to compete, much less contend. The Pirates don't want him to do well. They need him to do well. It's not even so much about the closer role, although that's really just an entrenched part of the game that even analytics hasn't succeeded in killing yet. They've tried, but they haven't pulled it off. It's the overall impact on the pen. If Bednar can't be your closer, then almost certainly Colin Holderman has to be. You don't have Aroldis Chapman around as a parachute anymore. So even if Holderman does well, as he did for the better part of last season, now you see how the domino starts knocking down the next one because you need somebody else to go into the 8th inning role. And if you presume that that's Kyle Nicholas, and Nicholas hasn't proven anything in the majors, he's had some promising outings after a fairly rough start to his rookie season, then you're getting into Carmen Mlodzinski, you're getting into a bunch of these guys that are essentially there as the annual tryout collection that's in camp. And listen, one of the thoughts that I've had about this team in the broadest sense is that it's going to have, or it really, really should have, a wonderful starting rotation. Injuries aside, there's no reason for it not to be that. If all you get from that rotation is Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and Jones being their best selves, you're going to have a rotation that's going to be in the upper half of the National League. almost no matter what you get from Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney. But this baseball isn't 1965 baseball. Or for that matter, if I want to go for some real pinpoint history, it's not 1970 and 1971 baseball where the Orioles had 4 guys who would just suck the souls from your hitters. And they would do so not for 5 1/3, not for quality starts. They were going 7, 8, even 9. Didn't need a bullpen. They were such an overwhelming factor in the games that they would outsize the games themselves. It wouldn't come across as even being a team sport. Well, that doesn't exist. What exists now is the quality start. What exists is 5 1/3, and everyone gives you a standing O on your way off. I'm not mocking it. I'm not being everything was better back then kind of guy. I believe that in a lot of ways the game has changed for the better, and one of them certainly is the tighter administering of pitcher health. My point here is that having even a great rotation, and the Pirates don't have that. They have one great pitcher, they have one very good pitcher, and they have one who's good, who has the potential to be more. But even that, at its best, is not going to get you that same impact. You're going to need a bullpen to get you those final 3, even 4 innings, sometimes even when it's your best guys, because the other team is going to go into that box looking to run up pitch counts against Skeens. He learned that lesson. I don't want to say the hard way because he fought through it, but one game in Milwaukee last summer where he was getting people out, but it took 6, 7, 8 pitches every time, and that's because not only were the Brewers laying off stuff they didn't like, but they did a great job of fouling pitches off. And you could even tell from Skeens' body language on the mound that this was a challenge for him. Well, any team that wants to get Skeens to throw a lot of pitches, if that's part of their mission, they can probably do it. And if I were managing that team, I'd be doing a lot of that because I'd much rather see the Pirates bringing in a relief pitcher in the 6th. The question then becomes, who? And how much longer do they have to cover before they get to Bednar if Bednar isn't going to be waiting back there? When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstorage.check.org. That's gunstorage.check.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Barry, who says, DK, as bad as our lineup is it possible that the bullpen could be worse? Well, possible, yeah. And the very real risk of sounding like I'm contradicting what I just said in the opening segment, the one funny thing about bullpens forever and ever and ever is that you have no idea. They're the most fickle, most unpredictable element in baseball. And you will hear that from even the most analytically minded general managers. You will hear that from the most old school, go totally off feel general managers. And while there's no firm theory that's supported by anything as to why this is, at least not one that's universally accepted, my own has long been that relievers tend not to have back-to-back high-impact seasons, meaning from a positive standpoint, because when they are really good, it's very difficult, and understandably so, for the manager to lay off the usage. So rather than seeing that reliever finish the season with 70, 72 appearances, you'll see them getting into the 80s. For those of you who go back a little bit with the team, not as far back as the Orioles' great quartet, but just about 20 years ago, Solomon Torres, when he was the Pirates, he was a setup guy for a while. He was a closer. Before that, he was a starter, did a little bit of everything. But it wasn't until he was tasked with a really high count of appearances. It's not so much innings with relievers as it is about appearances. How many times do you get up and down? Meaning, even if you're not used in the game, how many times do they have you get up and start warming up, and then whoever was on the mound gets the final 2 outs on a ground ball? That still counts as a time up. And Torres, who might have had one of the most durable arms anywhere in baseball, would complain to me that things felt different in the year after that. He wasn't alone. This was part of the Jim Tracy, Jim Colborn. Don't even get me started on those guys. You think the team's badly managed now. These guys would make the current staff look like Hall of Famers. Point is, that's part of what makes their performances so seemingly falling from the sky or out of left field in some cases. And that's not always bad. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes those guys will just show up and start lights outing you out of nowhere, and you're like, where did that come from? So maybe the Pirates will have 1 or 2 guys in that category who can kind of carry the load, but not for long, and not without David Bednar, not without Colin Holderman. So are they better or worse than the lineup? I don't know. I do know that the lineup, based on about 1 billion factors, is a lot more easy to project. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. And we'll be back Monday with a new episode as we get closer to the 144th season opener.